Thank you. Okay. So, welcome to the second installment of Slush Play. Woo! So, this all started when a few of us went to Slush in Finland, and that is an amazing phenomenon. And we thought, okay, can we have something like this in Iceland? And we did it, and now we're here again. It's actually pretty phenomenal. So last year was a really good show, and we had a lot of people that joined at very short notice and had a lot of fun and very educational talks. We had quite a speaker lineup for last year. And when we were kind of planning this one, we were kind of in the second album dilemma of like, how can we top the first album? And I think we're off to a good start. The show is now bigger than ever. We're in a new venue. There's a lot of new stuff to try out. I'm sure you have already seen what we have here in the lobby. We have an amazing lineup of speakers. Huge thanks to everyone that has made the trek here in Iceland to be with us at this great event. Let's give them all an applause. And a lot of companies have joined the fray. This is a record lineup, so far so good on the second album. So here we are today. And I think the idea overall is to kind of dissect a little more into VR, which we started to talk about last year, which was kind of before everything, or before pretty much anything had happened. And now we're in a really interesting place with virtual reality, where some people have gone out and shown their hand, and by the end of this year, I think every kind of immediately foreseeable platform will have released when it comes to PlayStation coming out with PlayStation VR now in October, and Google releasing Daydream before the end of the year. So why are we here in Iceland talking about this? And I now see that we don't have my correct slides. Okay. So we're here in Iceland to talk a bit about that. And I want to open it up a little more, because not only is virtual reality kind of becoming a real thing, and when I started my journey in the industry 20 years ago, virtual reality was an absolute science fiction. We were just coming out of the first disappointment with virtual reality, even though Virtual Boy probably still has a larger install base than current high-end VR sets. But still, we now have it, and it's real, and it's pretty amazing. And not only that, we have some pretty phenomenal technologies which are now emerging. I want to bring up the topic of artificial intelligence, which of course games have been known to use and in many ways invent, and games are actually used to train a lot of the artificial intelligence today, whether it's chess, Go, or StarCraft, which I think DeepMind is now mastering, to beat Koreans in StarCraft, which is a pretty impossible feat, but they're on it. So we have artificial intelligence, which is science fiction, is becoming science fact, and we have people like Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk warning us that it's about to happen, and we need to figure out tricks to enslave it so it doesn't enslave us. So we have the situation where this is happening on top of virtual reality. Then we have things like computers in the cloud, where pretty much infinite computing resources are available at the push of a button, spinning up instances in Amazon or Google or Microsoft is just done at a drop of a button. I can relate to the enormous effort that took us, for example, when making Game Online, to squeeze every ounce of juice out of a Pentium 3. Hand-assembling computers took enormous effort. Probably half of the effort of making Game Online was just to figure out how to make the servers work. Now we just push a button and it's there. And these are some phenomenal enabling technologies when you think about it, when you take virtual reality, artificial intelligence, pretty much infinite computing power, And not only that, more on the kind of science fiction becoming science fact. Elon Musk just announced this week that he's building a colony on Mars within the next decade. So we kind of live in this super interesting time where you feel the singularity just knocking, like what's going to happen when you assemble this all. And it's really, I think we have a phenomenal opportunity to explore that in the context of computer games. And there are some ways which you can leverage these technologies in ways which we haven't tried before. And I now have to ask if we switch the slides, because this is the wrong version. Okay, here we are. Sorry about that. So we had virtual reality, artificial intelligence, computers in the cloud, and then we have computer games approaching topics such as social economies, the value of money, the value of work. There's a lot of interesting topics with virtual currency. What is really the definition of work in an economy, which we have tackled quite a bit in EVE Online and are still trying to figuring out. And we see a lot of games which are really kind of leading the charts. I even see game companies now using the blockchain to implement completely decentralized economies. And then we that work in the gaming industry have an increasing understanding of what makes ourselves tick. Well, every time I meet a CEO or a game designer of a gaming company, everyone has a master theory about the human condition and where to poke at the different little buttons in our brains. So we live in a world where we are, in an extremely accelerated fashion, doing experiments on what makes people tick. And it's even to the point where now gamification is an actual term. And when you think about it, what does it really mean, gamification? Well, it basically means we know so much about the motivations and behavior of people that people are now applying our knowledge about that into other industries. So in this field where we have virtual reality, super good understanding of the human mind, computers in the cloud, we know how to hack economies, social structures, and all that because we understand our brain so well. And Elon Musk is going to take us to Mars. Before we know it, I'm pretty sure we'll be making computer games in space. Kind of what it's going to look like. Coffee, of course. Didn't talk about coffee, Elon. Like how we're going to get coffee to Mars. And in any case, so why are we here in Iceland talking about all this? And why do people come here, make the trek to do this? I think, well, at least reflecting on what I know, I started 20 years ago to work at a little startup in Iceland called Oz, who had the mission to create basically virtual reality. It was inspired by Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash. This is kind of 92 in Iceland. So there's a bit of a precedent for, okay, if we have these kind of big things coming together, what's a good place to explore it? There definitely has been an outcome of that here, where we started, or at least I started, at Oz, went over to SmartVR, CCP, made EVE Online, which is an absolutely impossible creation, and kind of got created in a similar disruption, where the internet was the kind of tech disruption that we were leveraging. And of course, if you come here to Iceland and you count up the VR startups and divide by capita in the country, then it just doesn't make sense. You have to add about 1 million elves for the ratio to make any sense to anyone. And it's really to this place where I think when we add all this up, all these kind of technologies, there's something about exploring the next stage in human evolution. And just to kind of give context to that, when I joined the little startup of Oz, Iceland was actually connected to the internet with a modem. So when you showed up early to work, you had to wait while the country dialed up. So there we were sitting, probably 30 or 50 years too early, making virtual reality on a modem connection country. So when we now think about, okay, we have VR, AI, cloud computing, Bitcoin, psychology understanding, what's a good place to go and dissect all this? Well, I would say it's Iceland. So back to kind of virtual reality. So I have been one of the people that kind of started to manage expectations quite early. We are obviously huge believers in VR at CCP, but we kind of are trying to separate our brains and our hearts. We extremely much believe in this, and this will change everything we know in the next 5 to 10 years, but it's going to be a walk in the desert for at least the first 5 years. So I would say that walk in the desert is now about to begin. We haven't really, we will still be in the hype phase. So now we will have, I think, good 2 to 3 years of a really tough walk in the desert to find ways to still make business so that people don't just die out of thirst. We have kind of been preparing for this. We've already invested quite a bit in VR. By the end of this year, we will have invested $30 million into VR, and we will have made about $25 million back. So making break even on investments in VR is not science fiction. It's can possibly be done. I'm kind of estimating that at some point in Q1, Q2, we'll break even on our investments. So it can be done, but you have to be extremely careful about what you do, because the install base just doesn't justify a lot of investment. So you have to find clever little hacks to do this. We have been fortunate because we started early to do that. So it can be done. The kind of the paradigm we use when we think of how to kind of make virtual reality games or PC game even, we think of that we're really kind of constructing a digital playground. It's kind of a mark that we use. We used to kind of focus very much on EVE as a sandbox. We made sandbox games. A sandbox is very much a part of the playground. But now we have little slides like Gunjack, and we have little swings like Valkyrie. So we are kind of thinking about this in the sense of how to kind of make context to what kind of decision we make. Overall, the mission of the company is to make virtual worlds more meaningful in real life, even though we have come up with kind of more sophisticated ways to describe it, where we now think of our experiences, where they really kind of create these moments that people rank as some of the highlights of their life. Here's a typical stylized kind of mantle shelf of an EVE player. You might recognize the rift there in the EVE monument there. These are based on actual pictures of EVE players. We've gone and done the research. It's not just some hypothetical stuff. This is something that's already happening. And we very much believe that we can build on this and do something even greater. And once we're through our walk in the desert, that we will go even higher. And we will go higher up a mountain. We kind of foresee at the end of the desert, the mountain is not a mirage, where we will, as we just have, we're all different people, or at least I'm a different person than when I started 20 years ago. And while we walk through this desert, we would evolve to think differently, be differently, because we're enabled by these amazing technologies, from VR to AI to hacking Bitcoin, our own minds, and building colonies on Mars. We, of course, at CCP are making sure that we will be one of the people that put flags on this amazing mountain we see up ahead. We don't think it's exclusive. I think everyone, there will be a lot of people making this trek with us. And through that, we will unlock the next stage in human evolution, where people will go from being monkeys into being digital phenomenons. I think we've all seen this, even if we don't know this anymore. Every technique that mankind invents changes mankind. We're now just seeing what the internet does to knowledge and speed of innovation and speed of sharing and all that. Through all these other technologies I brought up, we will elevate the state of people. And I think that's super important for one very good reason is that if everyone on this earth were to live like us, it would need 5 planets, because we live terrible, unsustainable lifestyles, and we've made our lifestyles the desirable ones. So if we get the 7 billion people that are on this earth to live like us, we need 5 of them. Good that Elon has a plan to go and find some more. I think that's good plan B. Because if the robot overlords take over, as him and Stephen Hawking are predicting, I know what they're going to do. They're just going to see, these monkeys over there are not playing nice with the monkeys over there and the rest of the planet. We'll just reduce them down to 1 billion. So before it gets to that point, I think we can come up with a more sustainable way to live. If we live digitally rather than physically, we're currently stealing the atoms of the earth to live lifestyles that are completely unsustainable. All our greed, all our need for new things, which we throw out after 6 months, can be satisfied digitally. I already see that in a lot of games. We all see that. We all know it from ourselves, how much of our spending and our greed is now spent in computer games over the real world. It might sound crazy, but I'm pretty sure that together we can do it. Thank you.